The member for Sudbury.
Thank you, Speaker. Bill 47 is a clear indication that this government believes that Ontario workers have it too good. Let's be 100% clear. This is a repeal of Bill 148. 148 is already a law. Those wages, those protections already exist for workers. The government doesn't have the ability to repeal that law, but what they have the power to do and what they've chosen to do is write new legislation telling workers, you have it too good. You're not struggling enough. The government wants to make life harder for you. The government wants you to work sick. The government wants you to struggle with 2 to 3 precarious jobs. The government wants you to spend less time with your family. The government wants to prevent you from your constitutional right to join a union. That's right. The government wants you to have an endless precarious career. The government wants you to be paid less for doing the same work as your co-worker. The government wants you to have less money in your pocket. This is a government that wants to make life harder for workers. The government says they want to grow good-paying jobs, but they write legislation eliminating the tools that would cause this to happen. The economic tools, like equal pay for equal work, growing the minimum wage towards a livable wage, and organizing or joining a union. Bill 47 will make it harder for Ontario's workers to exercise their constitutionally protected rights to unionize. First, workers will be denied access to the contact information of their co-workers. And Speaker, workplaces have changed, so many workers no longer work in centralized locations. So if a worker wants to discuss unionization with their co-workers, they have no way to access them, no way to reach them, identify them, even know who they are. And this isn't about privacy, because privacy is already addressed in this. What this is about is creating an unfair playing field where workers can't communicate and employers can.
That's right. That's right.
Second, Bill 47 removes the extension of card-based certification. Card-based certification recognizes that when a worker signs a union card, they're expressing their desire to join a union. Having a vote following a card-based vote creates a double voting process. And every single member here, Speaker, was voted in their position with one vote. And why would we expect that a second vote equals more democracy if we accept one vote for our roles here? Third, Bill 47 removes the right to speedy first contract arbitration. The first collective agreement creates the foundation and sets the precedent of the relationship moving forward for the workers in the workplace and the employers. It creates a predictable environment for business, and it creates certainty for employers and employees because the rules are clear and outlined. And finally, Bill 47 will remove protections against contract flipping. Unionized contract workers for employers who subcontract services, such as home care, housekeeping, and for school bus services are vulnerable to contract flipping, Speaker. They lose their collective agreement, they lose their bargaining rights if the service contract covering their worksite changes hands, and this is the case even if the new contract provider hires the same employees to perform the same work in the same location. Imagine this, you show up in the same location doing the same work that you've always done before, you're wearing a different logo on your shirt, there's a different sign in the front of the door, but you've lost your contract because there's a new employee. This government wants workers to believe that fewer emergency days are better. No wonder the government keeps talking about math, Speaker. Apparently they can't even count to 10. Let me take you back in history. 2016, there were 10 personal emergency days, PEL, personal emergency leave days, all the unpaid. 2017, 10 personal emergency leave days, 8 unpaid, 2 paid, 8 plus 2, 10. Bill 47, 8 PL days, all unpaid. We're going even farther back than before. Not only are there fewer personal emergency leave days, the government's decided to categorize them. So now you get 8 days, but they better fit into these categories. You get 3 if you're sick, you get 3 for your family, you get 2 for bereavement. And let's not forget that the legislation also says any part of that day constitutes an entire day. So let's say it's an hour before work and you get a phone call that your grandparent has died. So you rush home to console your parents. That's a day, even though it's 1 hour. You stay home the next day to help plan the funeral and grieve with your family. That's your second day. Too bad you can't go to the funeral. And God forbid anybody else dies that year because you used your 2 days. This is a government that wants to make it harder for good businesses to compete with bottom-feeder businesses that cut corners and take advantage of their workers.
That's exactly right.
As the government is fond of saying, the majority of employers treat their employees fairly, and I agree with this. However, legislation isn't written for the best employers, those that go above and beyond. Legislation is written for the worst employers. Legislation creates boundaries and prevents shortcuts from those who take advantage of them. The government admitted they didn't really look at the data collected during the 2 years of the Bill 148 province-wide consultation, but fortunately New Democrats did. And here's what was reported in the interim report. And this is something everyone already knew, Speaker. Workers were often so afraid of losing their jobs that they rarely made complaints around workplace violations. Workplaces that violated the law were rarely fined. And when they were fined, those penalties were rarely collected. And this government solution with Bill 47, the planned increase in the number of ESA inspectors, gone. The higher penalties for workplaces that violate the law, gone. They even released an internal memo to ESA inspectors ordering them to stop proactively inspecting unscrupulous workplaces because they had too much work already. Speaker, Cameron is a toddler who lives next door to me, and even he knows that things don't disappear if you simply close your eyes. This isn't rhetoric, Speaker, it's reality. Anthony Noccia, a Sudbury constituent, told me he doesn't have a high school diploma. Almost all the jobs require one. His employer's respect for workers' rights and responsibility aren't his highest priority. He wants the government to set that bar for him. His highest priority is putting food on the table and paying his bills and holding on to his job any way he can. And he takes abuse because of that. This is a government that is closed to vulnerable workers and open for bad, unscrupulous business. Let me read Sudbury constituent Mark Browning of Tuco Tacos Lounge Facebook post that everybody was talking about 1 year ago. At Tuco's, our staff are our family. They are Tuco's. There's been a lot of controversy recently about the businesses reacting to the minimum wage increase. And from our part, we believe that people are worth it, that owners have a responsibility to make sure we do everything we can to make their workplace a positive space and to pay as much as we can. We can never have been focused on profit at Tuco's. Our goal has always been to make great fresh food and show people you don't have to eat animals to have a delicious meal. And further, that this little step can help the world around us. Tuco's and Beards and Cosmic Dave's, for that matter, are labors of love. Money doesn't make the world go round, life does. The fact is, all people have a right to a living wage, and we're totally behind the minimum wage increase. Can we survive? Absolutely. If you keep coming to Tuco's, we'll do fine, and our staff will too. And to that end, Tuco's and Beards, effective January 1st, have instituted profit sharing for our staff to monetize the spirit of ownership we see them apply every shift. When Tuco's and Beards succeeds, we do so collectively. So there's another reason you can eat with a good conscience. Speaker, since they increased their staff wages, they implemented the new model, their sales have gone up, and they didn't have to bring the cost of their menu up at all. The Better Way Alliance is an informal network of business owners, small and medium, who are willing to speak out to defend employees across the province because, quote, we're more than a little bit tired of business being blamed for aggressive policies. The opposition of small business to these improvements that were made to workers' rights last year was vastly overstated by the industry association heads. Neil Brothers Food had this to say about Bill 47. We think it's really the largest corporations, the same ones creating precarious jobs and profiting off of subpar treatment of their employees, driving business lobby efforts. We're a family-run business. We've been operating in Ontario for 30 years, employing 60 staff. In many ways, a typical small business. We are, as the OCC would put it, among the wealth generators, job creators, and risk takers. And we are for workers' rights and the long overdue improvement to our labour laws last year. The big business lobby does not represent the views of most small and medium businesses. Consider this, Speaker. The analysis of Statistics Canada data that shows large firms, companies with more than 500 employees, are 5 times more likely to pay minimum wage than small and medium-sized business. That's why the government only talks about small business. Surveys by the Canadian Federation of Independent Business found that more than 80% of Ontario's small businesses employees earn above the minimum wage, and they're offered flexibility in the workplace to deal with personal issues. More than 60% of small and medium business owners agree with a 50 minimum wage or higher. When will the government admit that it is taking a completely one-sided look at the business community and is painting us all inaccurately with the same brush? The pushback on workers' rights from large lobby groups and our current government has left a bad taste in our mouths. These are companies out there that care about people. Finally, Speaker, this is a government that wants to make life harder for workers, and they can't wait for that to start. The previous consultation on improving workers' rights took nearly 3 years. The government of the day consulted across Ontario for nearly 2 years. This bill, Bill 47, was released 28 days ago. It's been time allocated. The government voted to rush it through legislation as quickly as possible. The public consultation of Bill 47, 5 hours total. Speaker, Bill 47 is an omnibus bill with a brick on the gas pedal because this is a government that believes that workers have it too good.
Thank you. Further debate. I recognize the independent member from Guelph.